All right, we are live.
Back in action.
Back in action. Uh, we missed last week, but we are here this week. You're a very busy man. You're a very busy man.
I'm
But you had
all
a
over the place.
you had a death in your family though, right?
We did. My great uncle passed away a few weeks ago, and we honored him last week. He was a really interesting guy. He served his country. He started a business that operated in multiple cities. He helped so many people get on their feet, stay on their feet. He had such a huge family. He was one of 13 kids himself. He and his wife had 6 children. They all have children, and so I joked with my parents after the funeral that it felt like a little bit like going to a professional conference because there were so many people there from the one family. And but it was a really beautiful ceremony. They honored him very well. And great Uncle Mike, if you hear me, I hope you're resting in peace.
My condolences to you and rest up. He's here. He's here
Thank
making
you.
guiding
Thank
you.
you.
He's guiding you now. So that's a
Thank
good
you.
thing.
Very, very nice. And so I'm happy to honor him to start the episode. And then we took it was my kids' spring break. And so my wife and I thought it was really important to expose them to some history around civil rights. And we took them down to Birmingham, Alabama. And we showed them a couple of very important pieces of civil rights history down there. And we stopped at a Civil War battlefield on the way back in Tennessee, Fort Negley. And that was an interesting experience. But we're living in a time where we need to recommit to civil liberties and we need to recommit to the fundamental guiding principles that made this country the greatest and the most powerful and the wealthiest on earth, and that's family, faith, freedom, and civil liberty. And
Yes.
we talk about this all the time, but to me, what's so dangerous about socialism and communism is that they don't value human life. And you see that in the way the Democrats responded to this tragedy with the Loyola student. You see that
Sheridan
in
Gorman.
the way the Democrats managed the migrant crisis in Chicago and Illinois, creating a problem so that they could create federal subsidies that they could steal for themselves and not use for any of the intended recipients, and cause a ton of collateral damage in a lot of black communities in Chicago in particular. You see it in the way that how many families on the west side, how many families in Englewood are now going to have to pay triple the property taxes for one third the government services. And I just can't be more plain about this. I'm absolutely disgusted, and I mean disgusted, with the way Mayor Johnson chose to go and unveil that abolish ICE snowplow after what happened. And then to stand there and say that his work would continue undeterred. What work? What work? How many more people need to be executed in cold blood, running away from somebody that they didn't bother in the first place? That as a good citizen of Chicago, decided to share this community with that person because of the policies that our city councilors and our mayor won't even let us vote on. Shared the city with this person, um, probably in their own way, whether it was 10 cents or a dollar or whatever, a tax dollar of hers went to whatever subsidies that person received. And, Maria Haddon's comments, I can't applaud what you did enough to go stand outside that alder person's door and holler and yell at them about how insane and how disgusting and how disrespectful that was. Can you imagine being that poor girl's family watching that?
Yeah,
Can you
they just
imagine?
yeah. They
And like,
actually the family just put something out.
this is not something that, this is not a one off. This is not a one off. These are predictable results from Democrat policies that do nothing for the people who built this country, who paid taxes into this country's payment system for decades, whether they be property taxes, whether they be sales taxes, whether they be income taxes, to fund this madness. And
Yes.
I see her office. Her office ought to be closed permanently until a replacement shows up. And here's a dirty little secret. I think that Haddon is the one CTU wants to run instead of Johnson. I think they all know that Mope is toxic and that he could not win a race for dog catcher, as the phrase goes, politically. And I think they wanted Haddon to run. And I think that's why you see her standing up. I think she was going to take CTU dollars and try to be the CTU face because they know Johnson's brand is done, that nobody will buy that brand and nobody should buy that brand. And you know what? It's just as disgusting as a year or two ago when he appointed anti-Semites to a school board. Known avowed anti-Semites to a school board. We have got to get rid of the socialists. We've got to get rid of the Marxists. We have got to create a business and friendly environment. We've got to create a low tax environment. And we have to welcome back all the families that left because they thought that this place was in ruins. We're not in ruins. We're 30 good city councilors and one good mayor away from turning this place around. And we can author that turnaround together. And it's because of the work you're doing and the work Danny C. is doing and the work Christian Maxwell is doing and so many other people. We are not going to be deterred. We are not going to be ignored. And I'm not going to let CBS or ABC or the Chicago Tribune tell me everything is fine. I will not avert my eyes any longer. I will not avert my eyes any longer to this catastrophe, this train wreck, this metaphorical second Chicago fire that has put us all in danger of more debt, more death, more violence, less economic prosperity. And it is time to after we get rid of the socialists, it's time to put a check on CTU. There are plenty of wonderful teachers out there. This is not an attack on the rank and file teachers who go out into their communities and try to make the community better every day. They're some of the best people in the world. They're fighting some of the hardest odds. They have people who don't help. But these core yahoos, these 4 core losers have to go yesterday. Because guess what? We wouldn't have so many young folks out there protesting for socialism and Marxism if the education system in this country was not broken, irretrievably broken. Are there problems with capitalism? Sure. Absolutely. But there are no problems with capitalism that can't be fixed with capitalistic solutions and free solutions, free market solutions, delivered from free people, no matter their background, no matter their color, no matter their creed, no matter their ethnicity, that we all have the same fighting chance. We all have equal access to the same opportunity. And it's never going to happen with J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson. Never. Not ever. It's not going to happen with the 10 or 12 socialist yahoos we have in the city council, on top of the other regular pocket full of corrupt stooges in there. It's time to get serious. And this stuff with Bailey isn't for me. Enough. Socialism isn't for anybody. If Bailey isn't for you today, socialism is going to take your house tomorrow. If Bailey isn't for you today, socialism may wind up taking a loved one of yours in cold-blooded violence. And you'll be able to watch these losers cry on media about how, that person must have been startled. Give me a break. Give me a break. It is time for our elected officials to recognize and realize that the people of this country come first. The people of this country. And that's not to say that we can't have a great immigration system that contributes positively. That's not to say that we can't integrate people from all over the world who want to share the values of faith, family, freedom, civil liberty. We can do those things because we live in a country where it's up to the people. And I think we've all forgotten that. I think we've all watched this same old song and dance for so long that we think that it's not changeable. It is changeable. It is changeable. Forget the recall mechanisms. Forget everything else. Vote. Vote these losers out. Vote these losers out. And
Yeah, I mean,
I'm speaking now specifically to the people who have sat out, to the people who have sat out in the last several cycles. You need to get off the couch and make your voice heard. Non-participation is not an option. This election is not a regular political election. It's an election for the survival of the capitalist system, for the survival of free market economics. And I don't mean to dominate the conversation. I'm just so wound up. I'm so disgusted. I am so genuinely disgusted with what I saw from that mayor. And
yeah,
I've felt that way on and off from different decisions from this administration. But it was the most low down, classless, tone deaf, disgusting action that has ever been taken by a sitting official in this city.
yeah. Like if they have the word
It's beneath us
incompetence,
all.
every time I think of the word incompetence, Brandon Johnson, Jason Lee, Zay is the whole administration just comes to mind. Like it's ridiculous.
Don't take
But
our word for it. Take the word of the people suing them on hostile work environment grounds.
right,
You know, this isn't
and
me
it's three of
talking.
them.
This isn't crazed MAGA John talking. Go back and watch the clip. I believe it was a state legislator who had to educate a member of the mayor's staff in a public hearing about how the mayor's office needs an education on how to work with Springfield. Sending
Tarver.
people down to try and pass a bill on one side and then having the same side try and defeat it across the way. These people are maniacs. These people are petulant,
Maniacs.
vindictive maniacs. And you know what? It's not racism. It's not race. This mayor sucks at his job. That's
No,
what it
he's terrible.
is.
He is an embarrassment. I mean, that man is an embarrassment. But hello guys, we are 12 minutes in.
Yeah,
And
right.
good afternoon and evening, and welcome to Checks and Balances, where history, law, and modern America intersect. I'm Zoe, founder of Chicago Fist Red, and I am with my partner, John Heidersite, aka John H., founder of Subscription Lawyer.
Hey,
And
everybody.
we had to thank you thanks for you bringing up Sheridan Gorman. I'm from upstate New York, Albany, New York, and she also is from upstate New York, Yorktown. She was 18 years old. This hits a little bit different for me because she was born and raised Catholic. I was as well. You were as well. And she went to a Catholic university, and she loved this city. She always inspired to come to this city, and she came to the city exactly how I felt when I first moved to DC when I turned 18. So I would hate at the age of 18 going to the city that I love and then get killed in the city that I love, doing absolutely nothing but doing what kids do, and go to the pier and watch the Northern Lights, which they forget to, a lot of the liberal media forgets to talk about, and including Maria Haddon. Maria Haddon is making this into like she's the victim. She's not. She knew exactly who that man was. More Real News, thank you for being in the chat. More Real News, and there he's not getting the he had a picture of Jose Medina when he first came over in his ward, and it's so ironic that she was able to help this illegal alien get housing when I watched her for 7 to 8 months ignore More Real News and his family trying to get housing in her ward. So to see this is mind-boggling, but to try to make it like she's the victim and what she says, it wasn't that they twist the words. No, we watched. I don't know if you watched the interview. I watched the interview, and those were your words. There was nothing twisted about those words. You're just incompetent, like you've always been. Since I've seen you down at City Hall as an alderman, you are by far one of the worst aldermen down there. One of the worst progressive aldermen up out there. Absolutely terrible. So if you follow More Real News, or if you haven't followed More Real News, please go to More Real News. And he put the whole video up on TikTok and X. She knew exactly who that person was. And now we lost Sheridan. And the issue and the thing is, we always say we want to vote. We need to vote these people out, and we do. But we need to have some type of election integrity. And there is a case right now that's in Illinois. I mean, that's in the Supreme Court, and it's Congressman Michael Boss. He challenged Illinois law allowing mail-in ballots to be counted after election day. They basically want it should after election day is done, it's done. We shouldn't be counting any more ballots afterwards. And The lower courts dismissed the case, saying that he didn't have standing, the legal right to bring the challenge. But the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in and ruled he does have standing to sue. So right now, and also I want to shout out to Susan Sweeney. Susan Sweeney, she's also on the lawsuit as well. A shout out to Miss Sweeney from the Republican Women of Park Ridge.
Cool.
The case, yeah. So the case is moving forward in the lower. Is moving forward, and it's funny because I don't know if you remember Bush versus Gore. We know we were young, but
We were kids, but I do remember it.
yeah. So the Supreme Court stepped in during the 2000 presidential election when Florida was conducted a recount using different standards across counties. The court ruled unequal standards in counting votes violated the Equal Protection Clause, and the court emphasized the need for uniformity and finality in elections. That decision ultimately ended the recount and determined that the outcome of the election. So, what do you think about versus? Well, we were kids, but now you're an attorney, a very good attorney. What do you think about the elections and the rumors about how the elections in this city, in this state, we never, it doesn't matter if you vote or not, they install the people.
Well, certainly everybody talks about how crooked Chicago is, and I'm always reminded of the old Stalin comment that it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts. But, setting that aside, when you talk about the Bost case, I think the Supreme Court hit the nail on the head when it was describing why he had standing to sue. They talked about how the candidate, I mean, the people too, but there's a general rule of law called standing, which means you have to suffer a particularized injury to go to court about. Because if there were no limits on who could go to court, I know everybody doesn't like the court system now. They'd all hate it if we truly all could go sue about whatever we wanted anytime. And so the idea of standing is kind of an initial hurdle to say that, well, you may have a dispute, but maybe it doesn't belong in court. And when they were describing why Congressman Bost had standing, and it seems obvious to me that he would, for the purpose of challenging how votes are tallied in an election he participates in as a candidate, they said that what matters is the appearance of propriety in an election system. And, you and me can joke about, the mail trucks and ballots and all the rest. But, I mean, as a lawyer, if you want to prove something in court, you need eyewitnesses, you need video evidence, you need audio evidence, you need written documents. The more evidence you have that something happened, the easier it is to prove something happened. Well, all these government entities exact really tight control over the voting grounds, and we want that. I mean, we don't want just any old psychopath going to a voting station and enacting violence or whatever. So it makes sense that we let the government kind of control these methods and time and place to an extent. But we talked about the appearance of propriety, and we talked about in our last show or two shows ago Well, let's think about a high school election and two kids are, vying for, high school president, and they do their ballots at the end of the day. And then one of the kids' parents shows up with a mail truck full of new ballots at 11:59 p.m. And oh, that parent's kid wins the next day. Well, people are going to question that. And so what they talk about in the Boss case is the appearance of propriety, that certainly a candidate for office has standing to bring up the propriety of the electoral process, but that society benefits from an electoral process that appears to take the greatest caution possible to ensure that only people who should be voting are voting. And the Boss case was the first step in that, was to say, okay, you would have standing to sue if you're in a state where there's mail-in ballots that are counted after a certain point. The Supreme Court heard arguments this week in Watson v. Republican National Committee, which is a case out of Mississippi, and we've talked about this one before. And if you read the tea leaves from the argument, people are predicting that the Supreme Court is going to put a stop to collecting mail-in ballots after Election Day. And so how are the states going to respond to that? Well, maybe they'll move up the time to send out mail-in ballots, because inherent in this, that Justice Alito in the Watson v. Republican National Committee brought up in the arguments that the phrase is election day. Well, that's fine, and I agree with that. That is a phraseology that's used, but what does that mean for absentee ballots then? Must this all be conducted on one day? And the same Supreme Court that is going to say, in my opinion, that you're not going to be able to collect mail-in ballots after the day of the election is still going to leave open the process of mail-in ballots and collecting them before the election. Perhaps we'll see yet another challenge after the midterms that takes the next step in the legal process. First we have, yes, you have standing to sue. And now we're at the point with the Supreme Court that no, probably you can't collect mail-in ballots after Election Day, but we've always had absentee ballots for military personnel, for people of a certain age, for serious illness or medical reasons. And so it's kind of there's a little more nuance to it than just, oh, let's vote on Election Day. But I believe that the Supreme Court is going to strike down the idea of collecting mail-in ballots after Election Day. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious from the arguments that we had. I remember Bush v. Gore a little bit, and I didn't have a legal education, so I just remember what I remember as a kid who followed the news and everything. One of the things that they really took a lot of criticism for, the Supreme Court did, under Rehnquist, is that to the present circumstances. And what they were saying in that language was, you shouldn't read too much into this decision for the purpose of future precedent. And although there was a lot of criticism for that, I actually thought that was sort of a smart thing to do, because one, we haven't really had an election fight like Bush v. Gore in 20 years. I mean, even Biden-Trump, in my opinion, was nowhere near the seriousness of what Bush v. Gore was. Because Bush v. Gore, actually, the Supreme Court did decide the election, and they decided it was going to go to George W. Bush. These decisions are being made pre-election about collecting ballots, and they're important, and they should be followed, and we should respect them. But in my opinion, Bush v. Gore was probably up there with like the top 2 or 3 or 4 precedents that the Supreme Court has ever ruled on. And what's so interesting about it was that it was a non-precedent almost. Because, as I said, the language of the ruling limited its holding to the present circumstances. So, but that was one of the most important decisions the Supreme Court ever took on. And these are too. Watson v. Republican National Committee, Boss. Those are all very important things that, as a lawyer, I love watching play out.
What do you think? I do see that we do not have as many poll watchers and election judges as I think that we should have, and maybe that also will be able to help make the elections a little bit more fair, because what I've seen so far that I've voted since I've been back in Chicago, because I was living in Georgia, that the places where you the place where you can vote, they do not. It's only, a few poll watchers, but they are Democrat.
Well, I mean, it's no secret that the party has to do more, the Illinois GOP has to do more, people have to do more. But, in my opinion, it's a function of money. And we can all stand here and say, I want something new. And wanting is the easiest thing in the world. I can want $1,000,000. I can want a golden toilet. I can want a flying car. I can want world peace. What steps am I willing to take to achieve them? All of those
Mm-hmm.
things. How am I going to achieve them? And, I just think with the Republican Party, you're dealing with people who are more independent minded. And so everybody kind of thinks I have the one right answer. And it's a little bit harder to get cohesion. And, here's the other thing. A lot of Democratic voters, not all of them, but a lot of Democratic voters, in one way or another, are dependent on a financial subsidy from the government. And that's what keeps them voting Democrat. We can talk about which subsidy it is, what voting block it is, but it's easier to keep people united when there's a tangible financial benefit that they see at the end of it. And I think a lot of Republicans just look at the government as like a cost, a sunk cost. They're taking my taxes. I want to limit what I have to spend on this, and that's it. That's the wrong attitude. And I know it's the wrong attitude because I'm watching 24-year-olds go out and wave socialist and Marxist flags rather than trying to find jobs.
Right.
And, I just, the education system is broken. And it's broken because the Democrats have turned it into a commodity. And the Republicans have looked at it as a sunk cost of just how do I pay the least for this? It sucks. I'm not going to pay for it. I'm probably going to put my kids in private school anyways. But we can't be like that. We can't have another 20 or 30 years of kids who are uneducated, of kids who, think that rights come from government, that think that money and opportunity come from government. It doesn't. It doesn't come anywhere from that. Opportunity comes from independence. Opportunity comes from entrepreneurialism. It comes from self-reliance.
Right.
And government dependence is the heart of socialism. Self-reliance is the heart of capitalism. The two are not going to coexist. They simply aren't.
Right.
And I mean, what chance do any of us have when we have a mayor who's running around with somebody who says America deserved 9/11? What chance do any of us have? How far? I mean, how far in left field does this mayor have to be to prioritize those kinds of conversations right now? How many Black homeless people are there in Chicago tonight that this administration has done nothing for? Nothing for. Taken what little resources there were away from the homeless. To what? To give them to who? And why? Because there was $100 million in it for the right people. And that's what has to change. We have to clean out that city council. We have to put a mayor in who has no ties and owes no loyalty or favors.
Yeah, and not tied.
To the certain elements.
Not tied. Yeah, but
who will prioritize the people first.
But they got to know what they're doing too, because that's the problem. We're dealing with incompetence from all types. So I mean, we got to really vet and really put, like, it's almost like I guess it is like a job interview, but the city, the city.
Well, and I think that, we've had 3 mayors in a row who have no problem picking fights, antagonizing, sticking their fingers in people's faces. I know it all and I'm not going to listen to anybody. We need a coalition builder. We need a coalition builder.
Yeah.
We need somebody who looks at this place and says, here's what we are today. Here's what the value of the pie can be 10 years from now if we clean this up. And so every stakeholder, everybody who has a little piece of that pie 10 years from now, how moving in a different direction than we've been going for the last 20 years is going to increase the value for every stakeholder here. But we don't have that. I mean, if you have a mayor that thinks socialism is what's up, well, you have a mayor that hates business, that thinks it all comes from government, that thinks we stand in line and wait for our bread.
Yep.
You know, and as soon as they've skimmed the cream, as soon as they've skimmed the cream on all of these budgets, you know what? They're just going to stop buying bread for us. That's what socialism and communism are. There's a great Frontline episode. There's a really great Frontline episode about Vladimir Putin's rise to power. And there's a story in that episode about how he was managing food shortages in Russia and Moscow under Boris Yeltsin. Go and watch that. Go see how it works in a country where the attitude is your right to bread and money and family comes from Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I think
and it doesn't
need to
work.
go back to that. Like, I
It
don't know if
doesn't
we,
work.
yeah. And maybe we need to do a episode on that. Maybe the next episode we need to like really start digging into capitalism and where it started from, Karl Marx to the Putin.
Capitalism is not perfect, and I'm the first one to say that it's not perfect. It does create too much inequity in certain spaces, and we do need to have societally a means to address that. We can't have people left out. And buddy, I'm so glad you said that because I was thinking it too. I agree that it appears to be incompetence, but when you see these decisions over and over and over and over, week after week, month after month, year after year, it's intentional. It's by design. The whole thing about it's silly and incompetent. Yes, they are incompetent, but it's planned incompetence.
Right.
It's planned obsolescence. It's how can we crash this place so we can take control of every asset in it. So we can justify the argument that we have to take every asset that the private people of this community have, whether it's housing, whether it's money or businesses, whether it's access to education other than the public education system, whether it's speech, whether it's your right to guns, whether it's your right to bail. This state is diametrically opposed to the individual's right to access the freedoms enshrined in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. The state is run by people who believe that the 14th Amendment does not apply to Illinois. And I can't think of anything more crazy or dangerous.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. And if you don't think it's crazy or dangerous, go talk to Sheridan Gorman's family.
Yeah.
Go talk, and she's not that, I could sit here, we could do an episode where I literally just read names of violence in Chicago. We'd be on here for 5 hours. And okay, you don't want the National Guard in here, you don't want the police to do it. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about revenue scams that we run here. Did you see the story about violence interruption getting up to $1 billion in budget?
Oh yeah.
And how much?
Yeah.
And we haven't interrupted any violence. We've interrupted non-violence for that.
No violence. Did you see the 500 kids yesterday?
I didn't. Oh God, yes, downtown.
Yeah.
Part of me believes honestly that the mayor's office engineered that. I think somebody in the mayor's office knew how absolutely ugly and disgusting that abolish ICE truck thing came off. And I think that somebody in there was desperate in any way to change the narrative around it.
No, I think you're right because when we went earlier today,
it wasn't that nice of a night. It
It
was not
wasn't a
that
nice
nice
of
of
a
a
night.
night out. It wasn't like June or July or August when you normally see that stuff. Oh, and by
No,
the way, what happened? The police stopped it. That's the first time you've seen that in this administration. It'll be the last time. I
right.
really believe somebody in that office had a hand in orchestrating that, just to kind of get the camera away from how. And I could be completely wrong. I
No,
totally
no,
leave
no.
that
You know,
open.
it's
I
funny that
totally leave that open. I could be 100% wrong, so I'm not out there
no,
trying to
it's
run conspiracy theories. But then I honestly, I have never seen. I can't think, and I hate to keep going back to this. I cannot think of a lower moment. I thought Juliana Stratton channeling Jesse Jackson from the dead for an endorsement was disgusting. I thought when she got out her Ouija board and started running the triangle on there to summon Jesse back one last time to endorse her, that I had seen the lowest, most disgusting moment of any politician in Illinois history then. And it was, here's Brandon Johnson to say, hold my beer.
yeah.
Um,
I mean that I got
and it,
and this is
it's,
the craziest thing because I think like I've seen it, but I've been so busy with the situation with Maria Haddon trying to play victim here, and it's
well,
like no, 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 girl,
that gets
no,
to, we want so much more, but the fact that from political leaders, from the Republican side in particular, but the reality is we're all people. You're out
yeah,
protesting CPU. You're out protesting
yeah,
Haddon.
we gotta
You're
protest
running this
everything because
podcast. You're at
they're
City
out of
Hall calling
control,
people out. And now you got a door knock too? How are you going to feed your family?
man.
How are you going to feed your family?
Look at my man.
Hold on, I want to get a chance to marvel myself. And
Look
to
how
all of the
crazy he is.
residents who participated in our snowplow naming contest, keep speaking up in every way and any way that you can. I look forward to meeting with the Chicagoans who submitted the winning names, and I look forward to seeing our city's pride, our spirit, and even, yes, our humor represent us again next year. And so with that, take a moment to, I guess, take in all that you all have been waiting for. This moment is finally here. The snowplow with the most votes, most entries, abolish ICE. Thank you very much.
Yo,
You know who this guy
dog.
reminds me of, seriously? Did you ever
Coming to
watch
America.
No. Did you ever watch Arrested Development?
Yes.
Do you remember Buster Bluth from Arrested Development? That's what this guy is. A mope who thinks the blue on the map is land. It's gross. It's absolutely gross. Go back. You know what? I can't wait until CTU takes him back. I can't wait.
That's our mayor. That's the mayor of Chicago, John.
It's unreal. And you know what? You know who deserves some blame for this? Rahm Emanuel.
Oh,
And I'll tell you why Rahm Emanuel deserves some blame for this. If he had not sat on that Laquan McDonald video for however long that he did, and then let it out when he did, and then slithered away like the snake that he is, the door never would have been open for these socialist maniacs to get involved. And you can lay this all at Rahm's doorstep. So thank you, former Mayor Emanuel, former ambassador to Japan. That's it. I mean, it's the, I mean this. I don't mean this disrespectfully. It's the wrong shading, but that's who we have for a mayor. We have Buster Bluth for a mayor. Somebody who thinks the blue on the map is land. It's,
you're born and raised in the city of Chicago. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, not even.
As your father, do you talk? How
No.
does your father feel about this?
You know, I'm actually kind of the anomaly in my family. I pay attention a lot more to politics. I think my parents have, and lots of people I know have the attitude that I just don't let this touch me. I kind of, yeah, they're all corrupt, they're all stooges, but as long as it doesn't hit my pocketbook, or as long as I can deal with the tax burden, I'm just going to live with it. And I think some of that is the community we live in. I mean, not everybody invites you over for tea and cake, do they?
Right.
You know, not everybody invites me over for tea and cake, and I try to be as nice to people as I can. So,
Right.
you know, I guess what calls me to get involved now is I believe we're living in times that if people don't get involved today and fix it, there's going to be nothing to fix 15 or 20 years from now.
You got two
And
sons.
I really feel like, did you ever see the Titanic movie way back when with Leonardo? Do you remember the scene?
Right ahead.
You remember when they pull out the blueprint of the Titanic and the guy says, well, she can float with 4 compartments full, but not 5.
Right.
I feel like this country is 4 compartments full. I feel like the water is pulling into the 5th compartment, and we got to find a way to stop it before it takes the whole ship under. And like, I'm done listening to how Bailey isn't right. I'm done listening to how Trump isn't right. You tell me why these Democrats running this place that are fine with kids getting gunned down, that are fine with violence interruption programs that cost $1 billion and do nothing to interrupt violence. They need to come and triple your property taxes for kids who can't read or write. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully. I'm looking at SB numbers. Okay?
Right.
That's not me. I would love to see, I would do everything in my power if I was running this place to turn Chicago into what's happened in Mississippi, because they've done some really great things in Mississippi. And as much as I dislike them, at least Rahm acknowledged that and went down there and saw that, and got people's eyes on it. We need to help the youngest generation be able to stand on its own 2 feet, be able to understand the beautiful privilege of civil liberty and freedom in this country. And Republicans have to do a better job. I'm calling on my fellow Republicans specifically. We need to do a better job explaining to the American people, the average American person, what we're going to do for them. What policies do we have for the Black community specifically? What policies do we have for the younger communities that are just getting into or just getting out of college? What kind of programs do we have for our seniors who have tons of knowledge, tons of wisdom, tons of value, have as much energy as some of the youngest generation? And we don't do a very good job helping them either. In fact, we forget them a lot. And that's a really sad thing that needs to be addressed. But it's never going to be addressed if Brandon's running the kids out of 3rd grade to go protest in support of Hamas down at the Daily Center.
They don't even know what Hamas is. Don't even know how to spell
Hamas. Exactly. Couldn't find where they are on a map. Would think, and you know what? Our mayor would point to the blue on the map and say they're here.
Well, and also teaching the kids that Jesus was a Palestine communist. So that's a problem too. I just found that out Tuesday when so I'm just letting you know this is out here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so we got a lot ahead, John. But yeah, this is out here. That's what they're teaching these kids.
I can't wait to see the Gentiles for Palestine shirt going around this summer in the protest crowds. Unreal. But this is what I'm talking about. You can't just ignore it anymore. You can't say, oh, this is a sunk cost, I don't want to look at it. We need to teach people life skills. And you know what? There's a lot of kids out there who want to do the right thing, and unfortunately, they don't have any support in their lives. I'm successful, and I'm very, very lucky, and I've worked hard, and I'm proud of what I've done. If I didn't have the support system I had in place for me, I wouldn't be where I'm And that's
Yeah.
just the reality of life.
No, for real.
You
That's
know,
why
and we need to stop the zip code lottery. We need to make every resident of every zip code a lottery winner. And there are different ways to do it, and it's not easy. We have to take the profit out of narcotics. You take the profit out of narcotics, some of these neighborhoods will clean themselves up real quick. They will,
absolutely right.
and you have to give people, especially the youngest generation, you have to recognize that there's a huge segment of our young population in Chicago that needs real assistance and needs programs that can help lift them up. Because the reality is, when you're 14 years old and your stomach is empty and you see your friends making money by, doing things that come with quick cash,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's there to guide you, and you have no other option because maybe dad's strung out on heroin and mom's at her third job.
Right.
Those are elements that need to be addressed. I agree with the sentiment that you can't just police your way out of some of societal ills that we see. But
Right.
we will never use socialism or communism to get our way out of this, to get out of the rut we're in.
Amen. That is true. That is true. Well, this episode is definitely dedicated to Sheridan Garman and her family, and I apologize to her family for the heartless and senseless representation that the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, has. J.B. Pritzker blamed her death on Trump, and Brandon Johnson is trying to ignore it and move past it, like it didn't even
Well,
it didn't even
and you know what?
exist.
Who were the media professionals in the room that smiled and nodded their heads at what J.B. Pritzker said? Who are those people
Yeah,
that didn't say to him, "What planet are you on?" If this
that's
was
the
your
point. Yeah,
daughter, would you
no
be
one
saying
holds
the
these
same
people
thing?
accountable. You're right.
Well, and
No one
that's
holds
it.
them accountable.
And so he can say those crazy things. And he can do those crazy things because everybody smiles. Oh, that's right, JB. You talk about these socialists. These socialists hate white people. These socialists hate money. Some of them hate Jewish people. How is a white Jewish daddy billionaire the top of your party? How did that happen? Where did it come
That's
from?
$1 million question. I like
Why
that
are you
one.
okay with that? Comrades?
Because they don't know
Because
why.
it's
Because
disingenuous.
like Miss
It's
Jackson says, rebels
disingenuous.
without a cause.
Rebels without a clue.
Without a clue. Yeah.
And I love Miss Jackson. She's right too when she says without a cause, but rebels without a clue.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes when you look at it that way, you don't really understand the true danger there is in this continuing to grow into a solid plurality voice. This country has never faced a time where 1 in 4 people would consider voting communist or socialist. And you pull people under 30 years old, 1 in 3 would.
But I am noticing this too when we did our protests in front of Maria Haddon's office, and when we've done the drag time, story time in front of the in front of the libraries. Our tax dollars is paying for that, by the way. None of these people are parents.
Of course not.
They're not parents. A
And
lot of them are like runaways and stuff like that. So the fact that they're pushed to the forefront needs to be studied. None of these people are parents. None of these people have they're welfare rejects. They're living off the system. They're runaways. So if they're a runaway trans, if you claim that you're a runaway, and you're trans or you identify as trans, they pay for your surgery or whatever, So it's a bunch of people living off the system, that are in these signal chats because they're telling them that Trump is taking away all of their social, all of their health care and all of their social services, but not explaining why. Because you are able-bodied and you can go get a job.
Just like every other person living on
Just
this
like
rock
every
in
other
outer
person.
space had to do since the time of herding goats and sheep. Shut up. Get out of
And they're
mom's
taking away
basement.
from our
Go get
elders.
a job.
Yeah,
Get a job.
get a job.
You
Only
know?
people that should be on social services are elders, people who are disabled, our children who are happen to be maybe in the foster care system and they're getting out and they're trying to, find their way and stuff to help them, stuff like that. But like, if you able-bodied, like you can go get you a job. And I don't,
And what are they even asking for? 20 hours a week of work
20
or
hours a week.
education?
20
And
hours.
that's not even 3 hours a day.
How is that racism, John? How is that fascism?
Well, it's not, but that's, the same problem we face in the local media ecosystem. And I want to be like, there are some reporters that I really like. There are some people in the media that I think do a great job.
I like Paris, but Paris is a little biased, but I like Paris Schultz. I like Paris.
I have a love-hate with Paris. I think he does some good things.
I like Marianne.
I think that he's a little disingenuous in some of his immigration commentary, but I also think he's a good reporter and does a good job. I like Marianne, but she does a good job, and I like some of the folks at the Trib, but it's not. Those are individuals. They don't own those platforms, and the people who own those platforms push down, work it down through the hierarchy what you can and can't cover. And just like in Illinois, we have a media ecosystem that works. Oh, somebody likes this. Nice. Pat Lambert. $20. Nice.
$20.
Ah! That's the way to do it. You know what? Small donations add up. Thank you so much.
Yes,
it means
yes.
the world to me that we've raised some money today. We can say we raised $20 an hour is a great hourly wage. Maybe we ought to do a 24-hour.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you, Lamar.
Oh, yes!
Okay.
Yes! Thank you so much. We're really appreciative of that.
Yes.
And, but it goes back to the media ecosystem. You have a media ecosystem that works for a party rather than covers it here. And the national groups, they're a little more open to covering Republicans because they're national and they have to, they have a broader base, but they're just as deceptive and dishonest in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
It's more that, the media ecosystem you see in Illinois is about keeping Illinois blue. That's what they want to see here, is that Illinois stays blue. The national media ecosystem is more, how do I whip you all into a frenzy and generate likes and clicks and eyeballs so that I can sell ad dollars? And
right.
you can do that on both sides of the aisle nationally. You can't, locally or within the state. Yes, they do those things for clicks and likes and advertising and everything, but when it comes down to the business of politics, they want, the Tribune, the Sun-Times, ABC7, NBC5, CBS2, Fox 32 even. They want to see Democrats. And why do I say Fox 32? Because then Fox 32 has something to complain about for 4 years.
Yes.
And I really think that, yes, there are different factions of the Republican Party within the state that do different things and go their own way, but we can be united too. And we can create messaging and a platform.
But they're outright lying. Like they need to do a special on migrant murders. Like we have migrant murders. We have we can call it migrant crime spree. They all came over here and start stealing. We can start with Macy's.
It's like everything else. There are some people in a community that are wonderful and do everything right. There are some people in a community that are not. There are some people in a community who are so dangerous and violent that they need to be segregated from society for society's safety, not even for anything to do with that individual. And, one of the things that I would work very hard on is to restore public safety everywhere in Chicago. You hear the mayor talk about crime is down. Well, if it's down because you have a law and order state's attorney, not some socialist progressive zealot who prioritizes the criminal first. And number two, with a state's attorney like that, the crime numbers should be at about 20% of what they are if you had a mayor that worked with the police force in a way that secured the city in the same manner and method it did for the DNC every day of the week. For all of us. Because we all matter as much as the Democrat bigwigs that show up on their private planes for 4 days to stay in JB's hotel and then leave.
Right.
We deserve safety every day. And if we deliver safety in the central business district, if we deliver safety in the west and south sides where they need it most, if we deliver real education and work opportunities to the communities that need it most on the south and west side, if we work with the police to focus on violent criminal offenders, and clean the streets and sweep the streets of violent criminal offenders, whether they're American citizens, whether they're illegal, whether they came here legally and committed a crime, getting violent criminals off the streets and not turning our heads the other way and saying, oh, it's too bad about this person's 5th misdemeanor shoplifting or retail theft charge. We're going to let him out to do it again. So that next time he's going to take out the gun that he used to hold up the clerk and shoot some poor 18-year-old girl in the back as she runs away.
Yep.
We need serious leaders here. It's not, and this isn't even a Republican or Democrat thing anymore.
No.
And I hope that as we do these podcasts more and more and we get more listeners and we grow our reach, I hope people really get Republican, Democrat, black, white, gay, straight, Christian, Jewish, Muslim. Those are all things that are used to turn us against each other. And we all have way more in common than we don't.
Right.
And we need to put these labels aside and say we're all people. People deserve a base level standard from their government. And this is what it's going to look like. And if I were running this city, the first thing I would do is I would call for a municipal convention. We would deliver a city charter. And at the convention, we'd talk about how we're going to do those things, how we're going to fund those things, and set the table for the next 100 years so that this city can experience economic expansion for the first time in 10 or 15 years, so that we can welcome back all those people that left in the last 10 years because they didn't want to deal with it. And if we do that, guess what? We can lower the tax burden in Illinois too. But it takes us all working together. Stop talking about how Bailey and Trump aren't for you. Start figuring out why Pritzker and Johnson and Stratton and all these other Democrat yo-yos who would sell you and your mother up the river for $1 are not for you.
Right.
Because they've proved it to you. They've proved it to you over and over for the last 3 decades, time and again. They stand for themselves. They stand for corruption. They stand for the state over the individual. And it's time to throw them all out.
Exactly. Thank you, Vanity.
Yeah, thank you, Vanity. We crushed it this hour. I think we're up to $30 an hour. We're rocking.
$30
Thank you
for the
all to
hour.
everybody who listens and donates. We're so grateful for it. And we hope you enjoy the podcast. We hope you check and balance something.
Miss Shelley said,
your
yes, very well said. And
Thank you, Shelley. We're doing these podcasts for you.
I love this picture.
You do have a beautiful family. Very, very nice.
Yes.
Thank you for listening and supporting us. Get people to the polls in the general election. Don't be afraid to talk about this stuff. Don't be afraid to say, you know what, this time I'm voting Republican because. And if someone's
If
not
you
receptive,
have a
then
family, if you have a growing family in this beautiful city and state, you have to vote Republican. There's no other way. Like so.
I'm not going to become an Illinois refugee. I'm simply not. They're not going to chase me out of the place that I was born and raised in with bad policy and corruption
Yeah.
and debt and death. We're
Yes,
praying
and
for it
greed
too,
and
Susan.
corruption
Thank
and
you.
theft. So yes. All right.
Well, we hit the hour mark.
Yes. Any last words? I have some.
I know I had to reschedule Famous Friday. When are we going to do that?
I'm saying April 3rd.
All right. So next Friday, I'm really under
Yeah,
the
I
gun.
think that, yeah. Definitely. And if you guys are looking for a criminal attorney, a civil attorney, and an immigration attorney, if you are illegal, if you're here illegally, but you are here because you seek an asylum and you want to assimilate to American culture, please come and see John Hyder's site. John Hyder's site will get you everything you need, your criminal, civil, and immigration needs. Please, please.
You can check out everything we do at www.subscriptionlawyer.com. You can see all about our practice. We're always happy to help people. And I tell folks, if you're having a serious issue, just call. Even if I can't help, I have a pretty good Rolodex of attorneys that are very competent and knowledgeable in different practice areas. And I can help get you going in the right direction if it's something I don't do. But take your legal wellness as seriously as you take your medical wellness. You know, if you think you might need an estate plan coming up, get ahead of it. If you're having
Right.
trouble in your marriage and you're trying to figure out, well, what are my rights and what does it look like if this doesn't last forever? Get in touch with us. If you're facing a criminal charge for the first time in your life that threatens your professional license, get in touch with us. We're used to dealing with people at some of the hardest moments in their life, and we do everything we can to put you in the best position possible after you walk in our door. So you can reach us at subscriptionlawyer.com, info@subscriptionlawyer.com, or you can reach us at 312-331-0087.
Yes, and if you guys have any topic ideas for checks and balances, please send them to us.
Yeah,
If
send
you
them
have a
in. We're happy to
question-
talk about whatever.
Yes, if you have a question regarding any of the, we're on episode 7, so we have episode 8 next week. Was depending on my man. My man is a very busy lawyer. He's one of the most busiest lawyers in Chicago. So, but Thursday and Friday, we will have him for 48 hours. So,
I'm going to be working on my A material over the weekend. I'm really going to bring it Thursday and Friday next week.
all right. All right, y'all. Please like, share, and subscribe. We do have an X channel, Checks and Balances. We do have a Instagram page. We do have a TikTok. And also, you always can find me on Zoli platform, Chicago Flips Red. And you can always find Mr. Hyder's sites on Not Guilty Shy and Subscription Lawyer. And he's actually he's one of my favorite before even all this. He's one of my favorite X people to follow. What a good person to follow on X. There's some good heavy hitters on X in Chicago, and John Hyder's side is one of them. So please find him. He's an uncomfortable truth. He tell it like it is. He's a millennial, and at the end of the day, he's one of the real ones. He's one of the real ones in the game and in this movement that I call the final movement, because the final movement is going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us.
It is. And I'm honored to walk arm in arm with you. I'm honored to walk arm in arm with Danny. I'm honored to walk arm in arm with Miss Jackson. I'm honored to walk arm in arm with so many people that just want better, that recognize that what's going on here has gone on for far too long and it needs a new direction. If that new direction is go a Republican, then so be it.
Nope, we don't got nothing to lose. We have a state to save, and a city to save, and it's not gonna hurt. We have
nothing to lose and everything to gain. We have everything to gain by voting together in a coalition and ending one-party rule in the city and the county and the state. So thanks for having me. I'll look forward to next week.
All right. See y'all later.